Good evening, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. This is Cheryl Cooper with the Cheryl Cooper. Welcome to Masterclass 1111. We are super excited about having you here with us on this second session in Masterclass 1111 on the second day, on the 12th of November. I just had to do all those twos. I get to introduce one of my favorite people in the world, and that is Miss Dawn Kirk. She is one of my business partners, one of my friends, one of my most important people in life. She rah-rahs me on, she builds me up, she loves on me, she takes me to the doctor if I need to. She's just one of those amazing people. She's an amazing person as a mother, sister, daughter, leader. Welcome, Dawn Kirk.
Wow, thank you, Cheryl, for that introduction. And again, I'm so excited to be here. And again, congratulations on this wonderful product that you have produced. I know this is definitely a labor of love. And again, just excited to be here tonight.
Thank you so much, Dawn. So tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what inspires you the most right now.
Oh, wow. So a little bit about me. Number one, I have to give credit or acknowledgement to my mother, who is on the line. She has not introduced herself, so hopefully she can hear me. So I give a lot of credit to my mom. So thank you, Mom, for joining this evening and supporting. So I was born in Alabama, raised in a place called Waterloo, Iowa. Spent most of my life there, went to the University of Iowa. Believe it or not, I have an accounting degree. So I like to count dollars in particular, but decided to go into sales because I just realized early on that I loved being out with people and interacting with people and not so much sitting behind a desk counting numbers. But one of the things that people don't always know about me, even if you just read my bio or what have you, is I've been an entrepreneur pretty much my entire life. So my first business was at the age of 12. I started a lawn mowing business. My dad would drive me around in the pickup truck and I'd go around and mow lawns for a living. So I've always had this entrepreneurial spirit my entire life. So fast forward that, right out of college, started my corporate career with Frito-Lay. I worked there for 18 and a half years through a variety of different roles, and then spent almost 8 years at the Coca-Cola Company. And surprisingly, was a senior executive at both organizations for about 16 years and maintained a side business of some sort the entire time. So whether it was doing Mary Kay, whether I had a tax business, I was always into something. So I just have this, this capacity to do a lot of different things at the same time. And after finishing my corporate career, went to finally work for myself full time as a business owner. So I've been doing executive coaching, some business coaching, a little bit of life coaching as well, public speaking. And then I decided that I wanted to write a book. So I recently wrote a book called Heartbeat Leadership: Empower Yourself, Engage Your Teams, and Impact Your Organization, that came out last fall during COVID. So I'm just extremely excited. And what really inspires me overall, and it has for a long time, is just helping people achieve their dreams. One of the things that really pains me is when people feel stuck and they feel like they're trapped and they feel like the dreams that they may have always dreamed are not possible. I love helping people see what's possible. So I'm truly an optimist, and I always feel like there's a solution to a problem if we're willing to sit down and take a look at it. It might require some trade-offs and some sacrifices, but if you really want something bad enough, you can have it. It's my core belief. And so that's what really drives me today, is to help people. I love to see people light up, even, Cheryl, just to see how excited she is to achieve some of these dreams that she's had, truly fulfills me. And that's my mission in life, is to help you become the best version of yourself.
That's so awesome. So tell us a little bit about what you are currently doing.
Wow. So let me see where to start. So I'm spending a lot of time, I'm doing individual coaching. I'm doing some corporate work as well, particularly around team leadership development. And then I'm doing a lot of public speaking, specifically around heartbeat leadership. And as you can imagine, particularly coming off the COVID timeframe, that leadership is needed more than ever before. And the conversations I'm getting a lot into now, believe it or not, is really around this life work integration. Everybody's now trying to really figure out, how do I restore the things that are most important to me? I realized through the pandemic that I've given all of my energy to my job and my work, and it's become at the sacrifice of the personal things that I said were important to me. So how do I get that back, right? And I think that's what's really contributing a lot to this great resignation, this challenge of organizations now not being able to recruit and retain employees like they did before, because they're demanding things a lot differently. They've realized that, you know what, my whole life does not and should not revolve around my work. My work should support the life I want to live. And so I'm spending a lot of time helping people re-engineer and rewire how to get things. And I don't like to use the word balance, because let's face it, if you're working, whether it's for yourself or somebody else, you're likely spending a lot more time doing that than you are just in life. But it's really around this integration, like how do you make the things fit together so that you live life in harmony and not in conflict with yourself all the time about, gosh, if you're working, I really should be over here doing this with the kids or what have you. If you're over here with the kids, you're thinking about the job. You know, how do you live more in the present? And so that's what I'm spending a lot of time talking about. And it's a conversation now that's entering the workplace more than ever, because the number 6 reason out of the top 8 reasons people are not taking a job or they're deciding to leave is a lack of work-life balance and or a lack of care from the organization about honoring and valuing a work-life balance. So that's what I'm up to now, Cheryl.
That's really good. So how do you live that out? What do you do to keep your rhythm, to keep your work-life integration going?
So through kind of all my life experiences, so let me first back up and tell just a little history of kind of like how I got to this place to share what I believe is a good roadmap to re-engineer your life, if you will. So I just shared, I spent 26 years in corporate America. And during that time, I was moving fast and being promoted quite frequently and moving up the career ladder because I'm very ambitious and had these goals for a long time. But what I realized is that I always said that the things that were important to me was faith first, family second, career third. But I woke up one day and that really wasn't the way that I was living. And I kind of learned that lesson the hard way. So there was a time where I was a new mom. So I had an 18-month-old and I just got presented with a new promotional opportunity. And this was going to result in my first relocation to another city. And of course, I'm extremely excited. It's one of the goals that I had. And, but similar to you, Kate, I had that inner intuition that said, you know what, now is probably not the best time. You're a new mom, your husband is on the road. You're going to a place where you don't have support, you don't know anybody, it's a brand new job. But what I told myself was, gosh, you've been successful up to this point and you figured it out, you can go do that. The other thing is I had intel to say that it probably really wasn't a good idea because I wasn't the chosen candidate. They actually wanted somebody else, but I was appointed to the role. And again, kind of ignored it. It's like, oh, I'll be fine, been successful. And rationalized it anyway, because I was like, man, it's the next level job. It's going to be this much money. It's not going to be that bad. So needless to say, I went. We relocated my family. I did have my sister move with me. So that was a huge help from a family perspective. But let's just say the welcome wagons weren't out when I got there. The cheerleading committee didn't meet me at the door. And so every chance there was, the environment and the culture that I was in reminded me on a daily basis that I was not wanted there. So imagine walking in, your office is completely empty. There's no roadmap. Nobody walked you around to introduce you to anybody. To make a long story short, it was a long 2.5 years to the point where I really questioned my own capability now. Like, had I reached my limit? Had I reached the ceiling about what I could accomplish? Then of course the mommy guilt on, you're working all these hours and your husband's traveling and you shouldn't have moved and you rationalized it anyway. All those voices were very loud. Not to mention, every day was just miserable. So I ended up getting out of that particular job and went to a different job, but that job put me on the road 3 days a week, in addition to my husband being on the road. So I thought jumping out of one situation to get to a better situation would be better, but now I'm gone from home, right? And so what ended up happening is I started to have panic attacks, what appeared to be at the time as out of nowhere. I literally got ready to get on a plane, was sitting down, and all of a sudden, just all this anxiety, felt like I couldn't breathe. I had no idea what was going on, to the point where I got off the plane and did not take my flight. And probably for a couple months that continued to happen until I finally realized the reason that this is happening, because you are not living congruent with what you say you believe. I had allowed myself to get to a place where I never wanted to be. And once I realized that was the core issue, then I could make some decisions to do something different. So I remember going to this class, and this was a life-changing event for me. And it was a class called The Corporate Athlete. And in this class, they made you write down your life mission. You made you write down your core values, all of these things. And so I'm forced to finally write it down on paper. And the one defining moment for me was the instructor said, okay, you guys have written down your life mission, you've written down your core values and what's important to you. Now I want you to open up your calendar, and I want you to just look back, even 2-3 weeks, even a month, and then let me know if any of the things you said are important are in your calendar. Have you actually allocated the time to the most important things in your life? And for me, the harsh reality was everything in my calendar had work in it. I didn't have my faith in the calendar, allocated time for it. Yeah, of course, my family was important, but I didn't have specific things in the calendar that was going to protect that time. And that was the harsh reality for me. And I vowed at that moment, it's like, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to re-engineer, and I'm going to make decisions now about my career based on me being able to keep intact in some peripheral vision of the priorities, right? Because it's not there every single day. And I'm going to make decisions according to that versus the title, versus the money, versus the next level, and completely changed how I looked at my career going forward, and began to make decisions based on my life priorities first. Did it match? Did the work situation support that? If yes, I did it. If no, I said no from that point forward. The good news is I was still able to achieve the things I wanted to achieve, and keep the things that were most important to me in priority.
So how was your transition out of corporate America? What was that thing that just finally made you pivot and decide that this is it? I'm gonna cut my ties. I'm going out. I'm going all in.
Yeah, so great question. It was a couple things, actually. The primary driver was when and I was at Coca-Cola at the time, when I switched from PepsiCo to Coca-Cola, which everybody's like, oh my God, you did the sinful thing going from PepsiCo to Coca-Cola.
You guys don't know anything about that. That's like a sin. You just don't do that. And when you're in the Coke system, you don't go to Pepsi system, and your Pepsi system, you don't go to Coke system.
Right. So I had come to Coca-Cola because I had a very specific goal, and I wanted to be a business unit president. In the course of that, the company changed directions and decided to reorg once again, and they were going to sell the entire organization off into other independent bottlers. And so there was only a couple options at that time. I could go to a smaller independent bottler in a role. I could move over to the corporate side and take a role, or I could leave and take the severance package. And I had plenty of opportunities to go to the Coca-Cola corporate side, but all of the opportunities were going to result in me having to relocate once again. And when we relocated to Atlanta, the whole idea was we wouldn't have to move again. I was going to be 4 hours from my parents. And at this time I had kids, approaching the high school timeframe, and I did not want to uproot them again, even for a job. Secondly, I always had a lifelong goal to own my own business full time and to work for myself at some point. But the reality was, the longer you worked in corporate, the harder that decision became, because you get used to making X amount of money, right? But I finally just decided that, if I work half as hard for myself as I have for another organization, I'm going to be fine. And I talk a lot about this in my book, which is about preparation. So I didn't know when I would leave corporate, but I always knew that I would. So I always made sure I was, doing things in advance and preparing myself to make that transition. So I'll give you a couple examples. One, back in 2014, I knew that I wanted to do this coaching thing, and I really love leadership development. So I went and started getting my certifications while I was still working. I started the business while I was still working to see if I really loved it, to see if I could make the money that I wanted to make. So I was preparing myself. I knew I wanted to speak more often. So what did I do? I leveraged Coca-Cola for everything I could to prepare me for that. So when they had speaking opportunities on behalf of the company, I went and did them. I joined organizations on behalf of Coca-Cola to get visibility and to meet people, all in preparation for eventually going out on my own. So the day came where the company was going to be 100% sold. I was presented with some opportunities, and I just said, hey, I like to first write a refusal on whether or not I want to take the jobs or not. So they would come with things, and I was like, no, can I do it from Atlanta? They would say no, and I said, well, I'm going to have to decline. And then I finally just decided I'm going to go ahead and take the leap of faith that I've prepared. I've got the right skills. I had prepared financially that if it didn't happen right away, I did not want to live under stress on if I didn't have a contract that we wouldn't eat. I did not want to start my business under that kind of stress. So we had made all the financial preparations where I could have time to build the business. And I literally walked out the door on February 28th. I'll share this quick story. On March 1st, I walked right into my first consulting job. How? Because the Coca-Cola system has a whole system of other bottlers. So during the last 6 months of my tenure at Coke, I reached out to another bottler and just said they were relatively new and they were in one of my previous geographies that I was responsible for. And there was a lot of noise about things weren't going well and, all of this stuff. So I called them up and I just said, hey, for the next 6 months, I really don't have an assignment. They just said, hey, stay busy, find some projects, do some community work. Is there anything I could help you with? And they said, oh my gosh, yes. And they gave me a laundry list and said, where do you want to support? So I was supporting another bottler for the 6 months prior to leaving. And so 2 weeks before I left, I said, hey, I just want to let you know, I've only got 2 weeks left. The free labor will be gone. And they said, hey, well, what are you going to do when you leave? And I said, I'm going to work for myself and have my own consultant. They said, well, you know what? Sign us up at least another 6 to 9 months. We could use your help. So literally walked out the door, my thank you for working 26 years severance check, and started the journey on my first consulting assignment. I haven't looked back. It'll be 4 years in February, and I haven't regretted the decision one bit.
And it's always exciting when I end up talking with Dawn, we talk a couple times a week, there's always something exciting going on. Like she's just an amazing go-getter, get it done, resilient person to be around. So what do you want to tell us about the heartbeat leadership?
I won't have time to deep dive them all, but I just at least wanted to share with you. So the first step when I started really reflecting, and people say, how did you do what you did, and how did it seem like you could do it all? I share this roadmap. And the first one was, you heard me talk about this define your core values. At the end of the day, what's really important to you and why, and this is really your decision-making compass at the end of the day. The next step is really around setting goals against those core values. So my core values are faith, family, career, leadership, diversity and inclusion, wellness, and lifelong learning. And so I created goals around those priorities, which allowed me then to make sure that I'm allocating time and resources against the things that I say are most important to me. The third step is to reevaluate everything. Particularly as women, we are extremely busy. We are playing a lot of different roles. So sometimes you end up in a place where it's like, how did I get this busy? And you're busy, but not necessarily productive. So it's just sitting back and saying, here's all the things that I'm doing. Why am I doing them? Do they support the goals that I have? Do they support the core values that I say are important? If not, I need to get rid of them. If so, I maybe need to keep doing them, or B, I may need to delegate to create some more capacity. The next one is around creating boundaries. And what I mean by that is what gets scheduled gets done. So if I was to show you my calendar right now, you would see very overtly the key areas that I'm talking about from a core value standpoint and how I'm allocating my time to make sure those are getting done on the frequency that I'd like to get them done on, and that I don't go too long without those things being addressed. And then Kate, I love the fact you talk about how important it is to stay active and have all of the social and physical and mental health in check. So I talk about prioritizing self-care as part of this process as well, because the reality is we can't be the best version of ourselves and adhere to our calling if we're not healthy and at optimum energy ourselves. And then the last one is just establishing accountability, whatever that is for you, whether that's grabbing another person that's on a similar mission as you, your spouse or significant other, or just having some tools that help hold you accountable are the 6 steps that I walk everybody through to this life work integration. And the last thing I'll say about this is I'm very intentional about using the terminology that I use on life work integration instead of work life balance. So I think we've gotten it wrong, and why so many people struggle with this, because they're starting with work and we need to start with life. And again, we can't balance it. We can integrate it. We have to coexist. They are not 2 separate entities. Like we try to live life over here and work over here. That's not the reality. The reality is they do this. So I talk a lot about just the paradigm shift and the mindset shift that needs to take place for this to be a reality in your life.
That's powerful, Don. I have one more question. If you could maybe pull that. Does anybody have a question around this slide? You guys are really quiet tonight. Yeah. Hey, Dr. Sanza, thank you for joining us. Kate, you got a question?
Yeah, Dawn, thanks so much. That just, I love the way that you laid that out. And I have a question around the core values and boundaries. And maybe it's entrepreneur to entrepreneur, or it's for your clients. But I have heard this saying that Brene Brown uses about being on the balcony and being on the dance floor. Have you heard this kind of analogy of that strategic piece is the balcony, so you can kind of oversee the dance, and then being on the dance floor is kind of being in the weeds, right? With all the pieces that you have to put together. How do you use those core values when you're thinking about your week and your scheduling to keep yourself in both? So on the balcony and on the dance floor.
Yeah, so probably my closest analogy to that is working on the business or working in the business, right? Same analogy. And it really comes down to, for me, it's preparation and it's planning. Like I try to create space every single week, almost every single day, to go back and reflect on the current day, what worked, what didn't, and what do I need to adjust tomorrow if things didn't work out the way that they should have. And just scheduling that white space for the strategic side and the planning side. And then, of course, keeping the task. There's just things you have to do no matter what as a business owner, right? As much as we like to say we're going to delegate and hire all these people, the buck kind of still stops with us. So I am very, and Cheryl could tell you, I'm very protective of my calendar and what I say yes and no to. What does that say? Remarkable. So I've just learned to say no to those things that just don't fit, and do my best to protect the time. But it really comes down to planning.
Sorry, I showed you the Remarkable because do you have your Remarkable anywhere close by?
Yes, I do. It's down here charging.
If you see the way that she schedules, it is remarkable. Like that is what drives her every single day. I'm like, can I get 10 minutes? No, not. But it's, let me pencil you in somewhere. And she's very diligent in sticking to that schedule. I was going to ask you about, what role does scheduling play in your life? Because that's a huge part of what keeps you moving forward in your success. And then joining in your networking stuff. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So, Kate, when you talk about this dance in the balcony and the ballroom thing, when I first transitioned out, I had a tough time because I was so used to the structure, right? I know what meetings I've got to go to and all these things. But when it became time for me to do that for myself, it felt strange to do it. So I told you I walked into this consulting piece right away, which was good. And then it was also bad because I got comfortable really fast. Like I wasn't networking, I wasn't building a pipeline. And then all of a sudden that ended unexpectedly. Like I thought it was going to renew and it didn't. And I didn't have anything in the pipeline. And so I figured out really quickly that I have to get out and I have to meet people. I have to start talking to people with some type of consistency. So I joined a couple networking groups. But what I found out quickly from there is I was networking all the time. I was always eating somebody for coffee. I was always doing lunch. And what I realized after a few weeks, like, I'm very busy, but I'm not productive. Like, I'm not driving business. I'm meeting a lot of people. And so I had to do a couple things. I had to make a block for networking. Like, that's a whole separate activity. And so now And Cheryl will tell you, I network on Wednesdays because the networking group I'm in is Business Network International. We meet on Wednesday mornings. So I have to be up and dressed anyway and be on camera. So I might as well make the best of that whole day. So I'll meet everybody in person or on camera on Wednesdays now. And I'm a lot more productive, which allows me then to follow up afterwards. But networking is so key. And the one thing I will tell you, it's been 3.5 years, almost 4 years. I have not formally marketed yet. Most of my business, I should say all of my business, has been referral based and from my existing network from corporate, which is great. But to go to the next level and to really do what I want to do, I'm going to start marketing. But I've been able to sustain through COVID, through all of this, strictly from networking and word of mouth and serving. Like that's another one of my core philosophies that, to make money, you have to give. And that for me, that's give my time. So if somebody asks me to speak, the first thing out of my mouth is not how much you're going to pay me or here's my fee. I'm like, tell me about the audience. What are you looking for? Because I look at those opportunities as ways to market and to serve and for people to experience me, which makes it a whole lot less pressure when somebody says, hey, can you come and do this for us? Or, I'm interested in bringing you in, has absolutely worked for me. Because I don't like to pitch myself. Cheryl knows I hate pitching myself. So the referral thing works out well for me. I prefer that versus pitching myself to people.
Awesome. You just gave me an amazing idea. Just pinged Michelle. I was like, what do you think about, I think we should do a networking event. Because there's so many people that we know, we could bring them in. Yeah, I'll talk to you about it. One of the other things, can I talk about that? Can I talk about us?
Yeah.
One of the other things we're doing is really going to, Don and I partner on some things occasionally. We're going to bring into our community a networking tool, and we're calling it North Fulton Local App. And it is, I'll let you tell more about it, Don, because you articulate it so much better than I can.
Well, okay, so we're super, super excited. It's called North Fulton Local App. And I want you to think about Nextdoor, Facebook, Twitter, the news, the weather, events, government. We're bringing all that together in one complete app. Shopping, exactly. The premise is based on, again, focused on local business owners and shopping local, not the big box stores. So it's basically the bringing a premium business listing to local businesses is the revenue stream. But what's the word I want to use? I'm just drew a complete blank.
Roadmap?
The road, it just has so much to offer the community. We're super, super excited about it, that we're going to be able to do some really cool things with it. Most importantly, highlighting local business owners in the North Fulton area. So stay tuned.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's exciting because we're kind of on the leading edge technology wise, and what this is doing. It's not, it's exciting. It's really exciting. So stay tuned. Well, wow, that was awesome. Does anybody have any questions? Hey, Dr. Sanza, how are you?
And the last thing real quickly, Cheryl, I'm going to close out, is just you ask people to, so if you want more information or want to connect with me, you can text BizCoach to 21,000. That's my digital business card that you see on the screen. So you can contact me any number of ways on there. But more importantly, if you're interested in more information in general, schedule a complimentary consultation. But I am going to be kicking off at the beginning of the year a 90-day group coaching on getting in the corporate game. So I know that we have, we all know entrepreneurs that are doing business, but love to do business in a bigger way and get into the corporate space. So I'm going to be showing people how to do that. So registration will open on December 15th and the sessions will run for 90 days, January through March. So again, that's the best way to get in touch with me. So thank you guys again for the opportunity. And Cheryl, thanks. This has been awesome.
Thank you so much.